Good afternoon, sir. Sir, I'm audible and my screen is visible to everyone.
Yeah.
At the outset, sir, I want to thank the organizer for giving me this esteemed opportunity. So before we start, let me explain the rules of the quiz today. So all the answers are requested to be submitted in the single message in the private text box, and we are looking for the maximum correct answer at the earliest time. Decisions of the quiz masters would be final. I wish you all the best, and here we go. So question number one, all endocrine disorders can be seen in thalassemia except A, hypothyroidism, B, growth failure, C, hypercalcemia, D, hypogonadotropic hypogonadism. Question number two, growth hormone IGF-1 dysfunction seen in thalassemia is A, defective IGF-1 level synthesis, B, growth hormone resistance, C, pituitary growth hormone deficiency, D, all of the above. Question number three, which of the following is most frequent endocrinopathy seen in thalassemia? A, diabetes mellitus, B, hypothyroidism, C, hypogonadism, D, short stature. Question number four, incidence of hypothyroidism in thalassemia is directly related to degree of iron overload. This statement is A, true, B, false. Question number five, which of the following is true statement about diabetes mellitus in thalassemia? A, diabetic retinopathy is more frequent compared to type 1 diabetes mellitus. B, diabetic nephropathy develops late. C, insulin resistance is absent. D, fructosamine testing is commonly used for checking the metabolic control. So which of the following is true out of all these four? Question number six, adrenal iron deposits in thalassemia is mainly confined to A, zona glomerulosa, B, zona fasciculata, C, zona reticularis. Question number seven, prevalence of subclinical hypothyroidism in thalassemia is A, 10%, B, 100%, C, 30%, D, 50%. Question number eight, zinc deficiency in thalassemia can cause hypogonadism. This statement is A, true, B, false. Question number nine, true about adrenal involvement in thalassemia is A, normal cortisol levels, B, normal aldosterone levels, C, low DHEA and low DHEAS, D, all of the above. So question number 10. So out of these four celebrities, we have to find out the odd man out. So A picture shows a famous tennis player, Pete Sampras. B is a famous footballer, Zinedine Zidane. C is, we know, Jeff Bezos, the Amazon chairperson. D is a famous Bollywood actor, Amitabh Bachchan. So there's something to do with the thalassemia. You have to pick the odd man out. With this, we come to the end of all the questions. I request you again to submit all the answers as a single text message in the private chat box. And we are looking for the earliest response from and the maximum correct answers. Wish you all the best, and we come to the end of the quiz. Thank you.
Dr. Sandeep, I would just, we are getting the answers separately. I will just request you once again to go through the questions once more, and we'll request all the audience and delegates to answer all the questions together, please. Thank you.
So we have a recap of all the questions again. So question number one was all endocrine disorders can be seen in thalassemia except. So question number two, IGF-1 dysfunction seen in thalassemia are. Question number three dealt with which of the following is most frequent endocrinopathy seen in thalassemia. Question number four, incidence of hypothyroidism in thalassemia is directly related to degree of iron overload. This statement is true or false. Which of the following is true statement about diabetes mellitus in thalassemia? So A, diabetic retinopathy more frequent compared to type 1 diabetes. B, diabetic nephropathy develops late. C, insulin resistance is absent. D, fructosamine testing is used for the metabolic control. So which one of these four is true? Adrenal deposit in thalassemia is mainly confined to one of these choices. Question number 7, prevalence of subclinical hypothyroidism in thalassemia. Please identify the correct percentage. Question number 8, zinc deficiency in thalassemia can cause hypogonadism. This statement is true or false. Question number 9, true about adrenal involvement in thalassemia. Which of the following statement is the truth? The levels of the various hormones. And question number 10 dealt with all the famous celebrities. So please pick the odd man out of these four. There's something to do with the thalassemia in all four of them, and something to deal with the thalassemia, and you have to pick the odd man out of these. So, thank you.
I'll request, I think, Dr. Ravikant to introduce Dr. Naresh, or we wait for the quiz results now only?
We'll have the answers at the end. So, Doctor, I would request Dr. Ravikant to please introduce Dr. Naresh.
Yeah, thank you very much for inviting me to such a learned platform. Dr. Naresh Bansal is basically MBBS and MD medicine, and he has done DM endocrinology, and currently serving as at Army Hospital RN New Delhi. He is an endocrinologist of eminence, involved regularly in scientific meeting and fora, and many more publications and presence and international platform. So these I invite Dr. Naresh and the my colleague chairperson for the proceedings and the scientific deliberations to be started.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you, chairpersons, for the opportunity to present this endocrine dysfunctions in thalassemia at this ESI symposium. Thalassemia is a very important topic, and number of endocrine dysfunctions occur in patients with thalassemia. If we see that thalassemia actually is derived from the Greek word which means sea. As a disease, it was first known around the Mediterranean. And due to the continual migration of the population, there has been no country which has been left behind and which does not have any, some percentage of the patients with thalassemia. And if we see that 1.5% of the world populations are carriers of the hemoglobin disorders, and 3 to 5 lakh infants are born every year with thalassemia major. So that's a huge number of patients who are born every year with thalassemia major, and the endocrine complications in them needs to be tackled, so that as our chairperson had told that initially when the patients, a few decades back, we never used to see the patients in the second decade, but now we are seeing the patients, thalassemic major patients, as adults also. So we need to manage all the complications in these patients with thalassemia major. So what actually is thalassemia is basically the hereditary defects of reduced synthesis of either the alpha chains or the globin chains. These chains are actually normal, but there is just reduced synthesis of either the alpha chains or the globin chains or the beta globin chains. If the alpha chains are deficient, it is called as alpha thalassemia. However, if the beta globin chains are deficient, it is called as a beta thalassemia. Now, beta thalassemia is much more common, and it may occur as a trait, heterozygous, or as a thalassemia major form of the disease. If we see this, now if both the parents carry a normal or a healthy beta globin genes, the children are normal. But if one of the parents carry the affected beta globin gene, then one of the parent is a beta thalassemia carrier, we'll see that 50% of the children will be healthy, while 50% will have beta thalassemia trait. However, if both the parents carry the beta thalassemia trait, there 25% of the children, 1/4 children will have thalassemia major, 50% children will be beta thalassemia trait, and 25% of the children will be healthy. Now, if you see the prevalence of thalassemia carriers, it is huge. 5 in every 100 people in this world are thalassemia carriers. That is a huge number. That is why we are having about 3 to 5 lakh patients born every year with thalassemia major. Now, why is there a problem in thalassemia? Why is there a problem? What is the pathophysiology behind the thalassemia? Now, we saw that basically thalassemias are the deficient production of either the alpha chains or the beta chains. It is because of mutations in the chromosome, mutations or deletions in the chromosomes number 11 or 16. If it is 11, it causes the beta thalassemia. If it is 16, it causes the alpha thalassemia. If there's a problem in the chromosome 11, the beta globin chains are not formed. Because the beta globin chains are absent, it causes excess of the alpha chains. These excess of alpha chains precipitate, they form hemichromes, they form the inclusion bodies, which causes apoptosis of the RBCs, leading to ineffective erythropoiesis, or they may undergo extramedullary hemolysis. So if we see that there is a reduced production or there is absence of the beta globin chains, there is a membrane damage to the peripheral erythrocytes causing the hemolysis, or there is precipitation in the erythroid precursors within the bone marrow causing premature death of these erythroid precursors, leading to ineffective erythropoiesis. Both this hemolysis as well as ineffective erythropoiesis contributes to anemia. Because of anemia, the iron absorption from the gut is increased. There is increase in levels of erythropoietin, which causes the bone marrow expansion and hence residual skeletal changes. There is a requirement of blood transfusion to maintain the hemoglobin levels. Because of this regular transfusion every 2 to 5 weeks of blood, there is iron overloading in the body, which causes hemosiderosis and hemosiderosis of the various organs. And some organs are particularly susceptible to this iron overload. Now, what are the main effects of this thalassemia? Main effects of thalassemia are because of profound anemia. One is because of profound anemia. Second, it is because of intramedullary or extramedullary expansion, rapid iron turnover, or the tissue deposition of excess iron. Now, if we see that once the iron is available, the iron is either taken up by the erythrocytes. If the erythrocytes are undergoing hemolysis or there is ineffective erythropoiesis and there is regular transfusions of the packed RBCs, this causes the excess of iron in the body. This iron is taken over by the transferrin or the ferritin. Once this transferrin or ferritin are saturated, there is still excess of iron, which is called as a non-transferrin bound iron. This non-transferrin bound iron is actually a very labile iron, and certain tissues, as I told, are very susceptible to the toxic effects of this non-transferrin bound iron. And this non-transferrin bound iron is the main cause of organ dysfunctions affecting the various organ systems of the body. This labile iron actually causes the formation of the reactive oxygen species. This reactive oxygen species leads to lipid peroxidation, mitochondrial damage, DNA damage, the protein denaturation, cytotoxicity, and cell death. And they may also cause neoplasias. They may also make the person more prone to infections. So as I told, this reactive oxygen species are the main cause of mitochondrial damage, lipid peroxidation, DNA damage, protein denaturation, and it affects various organ systems. The various organs, various endocrine glands which are affected include the pituitary causing hypopituitarism, causing thyroid gland causing hypothyroidism, also causes hypoparathyroidism, diabetes mellitus, delayed puberty and delayed development of secondary sexual characters. Deposition of iron in the testes and in the ovaries causes testicular or ovarian failure. It may also cause osteoporosis and short stature. Now, if you see how this iron overload affects the various organs over a period of time. Initially, as the iron increases at about 3 to 5 years of age, it causes excess iron deposition in the liver, causing hepatic fibrosis. Thereafter, causing cardiac cirrhosis, leading to cardiac arrhythmias, causing affection of the gonads, leading to hypogonadism, diabetes, hypothyroidism, hypoparathyroidism, and ultimately failure of the heart. A study which has been published in British Journal of Hematology, it had shown actually 2 studies which comprising of about 800 patients with transfusion-dependent thalassemia. It was seen that hypogonadism was one of the most common abnormalities seen in patients with thalassemia major. It was seen at about 12 to 15 years of age, and about 40 to 55% was the incidence of hypogonadism in patients with thalassemia major. Growth failure was seen around, clinical growth failure was observed around 7 to 8 years of age, with the incidence of about 33%. Hypothyroidism was seen around 10 to 15 years of age in about 6% of the patients. Diabetes at about 15 years of age seen in about 2.3 to 24% of the patients, and hypoparathyroidism seen at about 18 years of age in 3 to 4% of the patient. However, chelation therapy can arrest the progression of these endocrine. Good chelation therapy can arrest the progression of these endocrine abnormalities. As I told, hypogonadism is the most common abnormality. This has again been published in a very large study. It was seen that 40.5% of the patients with thalassemia major were found to have hypogonadism, followed by short stature, glycemic abnormalities, hypoparathyroidism in about 6.9%, and hypothyroidism in about 3.2% of the patients. Since this disease is very common around the Mediterranean countries bordering the Mediterranean Sea, the most of the studies have been done in those countries, and most of the data we have are from those countries, especially Egypt, Qatar, Romania, Greece. In Cyprus, it was seen that growth delay was seen in about 35% of the patients and hypogonadism in 32%. In Greece, growth delay in 32% with hypogonadism in 42%. 62% growth delay in a study in Egypt with the hypogonadism in 73% of the males and 42% of the females. In Qatar, it was 42% of growth delay and 46% had hypogonadism. And Romania, hypogonadism was much more common, with 77% of the patients with thalassemia major had hypogonadism and 41% of the females had hypogonadism. Now, what is the cause of growth failure in thalassemia? Is the most common is anemia, then is nutritional or the zinc deficiency, and then chronic liver disease. These are one of the most common causes of growth failure in thalassemia. Chronic liver disease is causing decreased production of IGF-1. Then growth hormone deficiency because of effects on the pituitary. Then desferoxamine toxicity itself. Desferoxamine is a very important drug to decrease the iron overload. But desferoxamine itself causes a toxicity. It itself may cause skeletal dysplasia and may lead to short stature. Besides that, hypothyroidism and hypogonadism are also contributory factors for growth failure in cases of thalassemia. During the initial periods, it is a chronic anemia and the tissue hypoxia which operates till about 5 years of age. Thereafter, ineffective erythropoiesis, nutritional factors like zinc deficiency and emotional factors are the main contributing factors for growth failure in the initial 5 to 6 years. Thereafter, it is iron overload because the patient has been exposed to lot of transfusions over the last 5 to 6 years. So iron overload, desferoxamine toxicity to the bones, liver dysfunctions, GH-IGF-1 axis dysregulation, and followed at about 11 to 12 years of age, it is a pubertal disturbances, hypogonadism, which contributes to growth failure in patients with thalassemia major. If we see the growth chart, the delay, although starts very early, it starts at about 3 to 4 years of age. Growth delay starts at about 3 to 4 years of age. It is contributed by all these factors, and further during at about 11 to 12 years of age, because of absent or reduced pubertal spurt, there is a significant delay in the growth, and there is a drop from the third percentile. And if we see the growth delay versus the growth hormone deficiency, in the last study, which was the study which I quoted about the growth delay and the hypogonadism, they had also evaluated how many patients had growth hormone deficiency in this study. About 40% of the patients who had growth delay in Cyprus was found to have growth hormone deficiency. 38% of total patients with short stature in Greece, and 40% had growth hormone deficiency out of 60% of the short stature patients in thalassemia major in Egypt, and 45% and 32% in Qatar and Romania respectively. So growth hormone deficiency is also one of the important cause which causes short stature in patients with thalassemia. So what are the GH-IGF-1 axis dysfunction which occurs in thalassemia is basically, it is both hypothalamic as well as pituitary growth hormone deficiency, hypothalamic GHRH or pituitary growth hormone deficiency. Besides that, there may be defective IGF-1 synthesis. Even if the growth hormone levels are normal, there will be defective IGF-1 synthesis. This circulating IGF-1 levels correlate negatively with ferritin and liver enzymes levels, indicating the negative effect of hepatic hemosiderosis on IGF-1 generation. Because of hepatic hemosiderosis, there is decreased IGF-1 generation and there is GH-IGF-1 axis dysfunction. Then GH resistance also causes growth hormone deficiency. Besides that, iron chelators and iron loading also have a deleterious effects on IGF-1 production and paracrine growth regulation. So even the chelators and even the iron loadings have has effect on the IGF-1 production as well as on paracrine growth hormone regulation. Short stature is also contributed by the shortness of the trunk, which usually starts at about 5 to 6 years of age in males and about 8 years in females. And well transfused and chelated patients normally grow well during the first 10 years of life. Because iron toxicity and iron overloads manifest at about 5 to 6 years of age, if these patients are chelated well, they grow well during the first 10 years of life. If we see the oxological parameters, if we see the height of the patients of thalassemia compared with the patients compared with normal, there is a significant growth delay in the patient with thalassemia major, as well as the growth velocity is significantly affected after about 3 to 4 years. After about 3 to 4 years of age, the growth velocity is significantly delayed in patients with thalassemia major. And similar is the case with the weight. The weight is also weight in both male and females is affected right from 3 to 4 years of age in patients with thalassemia major. Then besides growth, there is also disproportionate short stature. They have a short upper segment and a normal lower segment. And 15 to 40% of the patients this is seen in about 15 to 40% of the patients, and it is further impaired by hypogonadism because the sex hormones are mainly responsible for formation of the upper segment. So because of hypogonadism itself, because of hypogonadism and because of desferoxamine, about 15 to 40% of the patients have disproportionate short stature. The truncal shortening, as I told, is also seen in children with good chelation therapy and low ferritin levels due to platyspondylosis induced by desferoxamine toxicity itself. This desferoxamine toxicity may manifest as short trunk, sternal protrusion, swelling of the wrist and knees, and genu valgum. Then there is spinal growth impairment leading to scoliosis, and all these correlate positively with advanced age, high ferritin levels, and duration of desferoxamine treatment. If we do the growth assessment is the same as we do in any other patient with short stature. We take the standing, sitting height, arm length, and pubertal staging. We check for the bone age. We do serum cortisol and thyroid function test, IGF-1 and IGBP3 levels. For puberty, we check for LH, testosterone, and 17-beta estradiol, and other routine blood tests like complete blood count, liver function test, calcium, phosphorus, alkaline phosphatase, creatinine, electrolytes, serum ferritin, cholesterol, triglyceride, magnesium, and zinc, all are required in a patient with beta thalassemia because all these are affected in patients with beta thalassemia. Then urine analysis is required. Growth hormone stimulation test for growth hormone secretion is required if the patient has significant growth delay and if we are suspecting the growth hormone deficiency. Then MRI of hypothalamus and pituitary regions for pituitary iron overload and size of the pituitary gland to look for atrophy of the pituitary is also required in patients with short stature in thalassemia major. The IGF-1 levels are significantly low in patients with thalassemia as compared to those with patients with normal. Now, if we see this chart, the blue dots show the patients with thalassemia major having the mean GHT level, having the growth hormone deficiency. Even once they are stimulated, the growth hormone levels were pretty low as compared to the mean levels. And if we compare it with the normal persons attaining the normal height, the growth hormone levels are significantly lower, statistically very low in patients with thalassemia. IGF-1 levels are very low in patients with thalassemia as compared to the normal persons. So how do we prevent the growth retardation in patients with thalassemia? We have to improve blood transfusion, correct hypoxia. It will help in improving the nutrient and oxygen supply to the liver and endocrine glands, improve the iron chelation therapy. It will prevent the cirrhosis of liver, heart, pituitary, pancreas, and the growth plate. We have to improve the nutrition, provide zinc, which is deficient in patients with thalassemia. This will help to provide the micro and micronutrients to liver and endocrine glands and the growth plate. If there is growth hormone deficiency, we have to correct this growth hormone deficiency. It will stimulate the endochondral growth and bone mineral accretion, as well as will be anabolic for muscle and fat. And induction of puberty and at appropriate age, about 11 to 12 years in boys and 10 years in girls, should be done to attain appropriate height. Therapeutic aim of chelating therapy is to achieve a serum ferritin of about 1000 to 1500 micrograms per liter. And early chelating therapy between the age of 2 to 5 years may at times have deleterious effects on growth compared to patients who started therapy after 5 years of age. Because these chelating agents may inhibit the cell proliferation, protein synthesis, and mineral deposition, lowering the activity of alkaline phosphatase, which is a bone-forming hormone, bone-forming enzyme. Zinc depletion secondary to desferrioxamine decreases the ALP levels because ALP is a zinc-dependent enzyme. So zinc depletion is also important. Zinc depletion is an important cause of growth delay in patients with thalassemia major. If there is growth hormone deficiency, recombinant human growth hormone in the dose of 0.025 to 0.05 milligram per kg per day, subcutaneous daily, should be advised to the patients. And recombinant growth hormone should start with low doses and be titrated according to the IGF-1 levels, as in all of the patients with growth hormone deficiency. However, there are no guidelines for use of growth hormone treatment in adult patients with thalassemia major and growth hormone deficiency. In other patients with growth hormone deficiency, we are continuing the growth hormone in the adult patients at an adult dose, but there are no guidelines for use of growth hormone treatment in these adult patients with thalassemia, adults with thalassemia major. Now, the second most important endocrine abnormality is pubertal delay. There is failure of pubertal development, which is seen in about 43% of the patients over the age of 16 years. This is because the interior pituitary is particularly sensitive to free radical oxidative stress, as well as there is excessive iron deposition in the gonads. So hypogonadism is the most frequent endocrinopathy, which is seen in about 14.4% of the girls versus 25.5% of the males less than 20 years. Despite being the most frequent endocrinopathy, it is frequently undertreated. Only 25% of the females and 56% of the males having hypogonadism are treated for hypogonadism in patients with thalassemia major. Among the hypogonadal girls, menarche was delayed to 17 years, and there is a reduction in the number of primordial follicles. There is iron deposition in seminal tubules and Leydig cells. The cause of pubertal delay is delayed puberty is multiple. It may be due to hypogonadotropic hypogonadism, which is the most common cause of hypogonadism. Besides that, primary hypogonadism, chronic hypoxia, liver disease, diabetes, zinc deficiency all contributes to delayed puberty in patients with thalassemia. It may manifest in girls by delayed menarche. Breast development is poor. The patients are frequently oligoamenorrheic or amenorrheic, even if the menarche occurs, or they may present with primary or secondary amenorrhea. In boys, they may not have or they may have very sparse facial and body hair. They may be defective spermatogenesis or testosterone secretion. They tend to have decreased libido even if the sperm production occurs. So the treatment of the pubertal disorders is again sex steroid replacement therapy, as in any other patients with hypogonadism, and if required, the induction of spermatogenesis and ovulation. The puberty should be, if the patient is attaining adequate height, the patient has been chelated well, ferritin levels are lower, the puberty should be induced. If there is absence of puberty, puberty should be induced at the age of about 12 years in males and about 10 to 11 years in cases of females. The next important is the thyroid disorders in thalassemia. Thalassemia may cause hypothyroidism, which may be both primary as well as secondary hypothyroidism. Primary is seen in about 5% of the patients, subclinical much more commoner, and secondary hypothyroidism in a few patients. Thyroid dysfunctions occurs after about 10 years of age, and it worsens with advancing age because of iron overload. And incidence is directly related to degree of iron overload, with most having ferritin above 1500 micrograms per liter. What is the cause of this thyroid dysfunction is, one is iron overload and toxicity. As I told, it is a reactive oxygen species leading to lipid peroxidation. And second important is the L-type calcium channels which are present in pituitary, which mediate the TSH release. This is affected by non-transferrin bound iron, causing defective TSH secretion in response to low free T4. Then there is decreased hepatic T4 dehydrogenase enzyme. There is reduced tissue conversion of T4 to T3. So annual investigation of thyroid function is recommended beginning at the age of about 9 to 10 years. Subclinical hypothyroidism, if these patients also have cardiomyopathy and subclinical hypothyroidism, if these patients are given amiodarone for cardiomyopathy, it may result in rapid progression of severe thyroid disease and deterioration of the cardiac function. Then next is the diabetes in thalassemia major. The diabetes is also fairly common in patients with thalassemia. In a study in Italy, it was seen in about 2.3 to 24% of the patients receiving regular transfusion in transfusion-dependent thalassemia. And the prevalence, although the prevalence varies and is higher in the older patients, and abnormal carbohydrate metabolism usually develops during the second decade of life, even though the baseline blood sugar levels are frequently normal. The cause of this diabetes mellitus is, one is iron overload in the pancreas causing pancreatic dysfunction. First phase insulin secretion is decreased. Then second is the viral infection of the liver. It has been seen that diabetes is much more common in the patients who are hepatitis C carriers than in the patients who are negative for hepatitis virus. And because of liver cirrhosis, because of viral infection, the hepatic glucose output is increased. The liver insulin secretion is decreased. There is hyperinsulinemia, causing insulin resistance, leading to hyperinsulinemia, causing beta cell exhaustion, insulin deficiency, and diabetes mellitus. So one is, the main is pancreatic dysfunction causing diabetes. Second is liver dysfunction. Liver dysfunction may be because of liver cirrhosis or because of hepatitis C virus. Then there is also immune system activation against the pancreatic cells, which may cause diabetes mellitus in patients with thalassemia. Now we see the complications of diabetes in thalassemia, diabetic retinopathy. About 26% of the patients develop diabetic retinopathy with a diabetes duration of 9 plus minus 4.5 years. However, diabetic retinopathy is milder when compared to patients with type 1 diabetes mellitus. This may be secondary to the effects of hypogonadism. Because of hypogonadism, diabetic retinopathy may be much less severe as compared to the patients with type 1 diabetes mellitus. Although diabetic nephropathy is seen in about 58% of the patients who develop microalbuminuria after the mean duration of overt diabetes of 3.6 plus minus 2 years, it has an early development, and there is an accelerated course of diabetic nephropathy, unlike diabetic retinopathy. This may be contributed by the iron-derived free radicals causing high oxidative stress to the kidney. So it is recommended that OGTT should be carried out at about 10, 12, 14, and 16 years of age and annually thereafter. HbA1c is, however, unreliable in patients with hemoglobinopathies because of alteration in the normal process of glycation of HbA to HbA1c. There's an abnormal peak on chromatography, making estimation of HbA1c unreliable. And then RBCs are more prone to hemolysis, decreasing time for glycosylation to occur and producing falsely low HbA1c. Fructosamine testing may be used instead as a target for metabolic control. Ultrasound of the pancreas may show high echogenicity and decreased size of the gland, which correlating with the reduced activity of the exocrine pancreas. MRI of the pancreas may show high signal intensity due to fatty degeneration of the pancreatic parenchyma. To prevent this diabetes, intensive chelation may be required to reverse islet cell damage and decrease the insulin requirement. And combined therapy with desferrioxamine and defiperone, which is an intracellular chelating drug, is effective in normalizing the beta cell function in high percentage of the patients with impaired glucose tolerance. Now, adrenal insufficiency is also seen in patients with thalassemia. But unique findings in adrenal insufficiency which are seen are, there's a dissociation between the abnormal androgen and normal cortisol. Androgen levels are abnormal. There is normal cortisol and aldosterone synthesis, leading to low serum dehydroepiandrosterone, androstenedione, and testosterone levels with normal cortisol and aldosterone. This dissociation, however, does not correlate with histological finding because iron deposits are mainly confined to the zona glomerulosa with a rare involvement of zona fascicularis. It is mainly confined to the zona glomerulosa and zona reticulata. Zona reticulata may cause abnormal androgen levels, but zona glomerulosa does not cause affection of zona glomerulosa does not cause low aldosterone levels. Primary adrenal insufficiency and secondary adrenal insufficiency may be seen in about 15 to 53.6% in children, adolescents, and adults with type thalassemia major. Chronic transfusion-induced iron toxicity in both adrenals as well as the pituitary glands. And many a time, this adrenal insufficiency is not easily diagnosed in patients with thalassemia. It is because of the overlapping symptoms of the adrenal insufficiency normally seen in thalassemic patients like asthenia, muscle weakness, arthralgia, and weight loss, unless and until the test for adrenal insufficiency is carried out. So it is recommended that adrenal function tests should be carried out every 1 to 2 years, especially in GHD patients during the recombinant growth hormone therapy. Then hypoparathyroidism in thalassemia, it is also fairly common. Overt hypoparathyroidism is seen in only about 3 to 4%, but subclinical hypoparathyroidism is seen in almost 100% of the patients with thalassemia. It is an uncommon complication which presents after 16 years of age, equally in both sexes, and the cause is deposition of iron in the parathyroid glands and iron toxicity. Majority of the patients with hypoparathyroidism, they have mild disease. They may present only with paresthesias, but the severe cases may present with tetany, seizures, or cardiac failure. So early detection of the disease and start of calcium therapy may prevent the impending osteopenia. Vitamin D deficiency is also fairly common, seen in about 50 to 100% of the thalassemic adolescents, and correction of vitamin D deficiency leads to increased linear growth and IGF-1 levels. Then, as I told, there's a zinc deficiency which occurs in patients with thalassemia. This dietary zinc deficiency may decrease the thymidine kinase activity, which decreases the cell proliferation. It may stop the cell division. It may stop the cell cycle from G1 to progression from G1 to S phase of the cell cycle. Then it may inhibit the binding of erythrocyte Kruppel-like factor and GATA1, which is required in the promoter region of the beta chains. So it inhibits the beta chain synthesis. It contributes further to beta thalassemia, contributes further to development of beta thalassemia. It decreases the beta chains further. It may decrease the CD4 and CD8 T cells, leading to decreased cytokine production and interleukin productions, thus decreased T cell proliferation and increased risk of infections in patients with thalassemia. So biochemical evidence of zinc deficiency is seen in about 40%. It contributes to short stature, low weight, anorexia, hypogonadism, and those who received zinc therapy for 1 to 7 years had higher growth velocity and height SDS. Now, the bone disease thalassemia is also fairly common. The bone disease is multifactorial. It may be due to inadequate transfusional regimens, leading to intermittent anemia, bone marrow expansion, cortical thinning, and osteoporosis. It may be due to inadequate iron chelation, causing iron toxicity and reactive oxygen species, which may stimulate the osteoclast and inhibit the osteoblast, leading to osteopenia and osteoporosis. Then endocrinopathies leading to hypogonadism, GH and IGF-1 deficiency, both inhibits the bone formation, leading to osteopenia and osteoporosis. Then nutritional deficiencies like vitamin D and zinc deficiency and iron chelators itself causing bone dysplasias. They may all be the reason for bone disease and thalassemia. If we see, initially it is a bone marrow expansion. During first 5 years, it is a bone marrow expansion because of ineffective erythropoiesis and hemolysis. Thereafter, as transfusion therapy begins, the iron overload, iron chelation, vitamin D deficiency, then growth hormone deficiency and liver disease contributes to bone complications, followed later on by aggravating hypogonadism, hypothyroidism, hypoparathyroidism, and renal disease all contribute to bone complications if the treatment is not optimal. Histologically, if we see the bone, there are abnormal chondrocytes, alteration in the cartilage staining pattern, irregular columnar cartilage, and iron deposition seen in bones as well as the cartilages. There is low BMD detected as early as 12 years of age with further deterioration because of delayed puberty. All these causes vertebral compression fractures, severe backaches, and fractures of the extremities. And about 20% of the thalassemia patients experience one or more fractures. And therefore, DEXA should be performed at about 10 to 12 years of age and every 2 years thereafter. Now, what is the treatment for thalassemia-associated osteoporosis? Bisphosphonates have been tried in a number of studies. They cause a rapid and substantial decrease in the bone resorption. Both alendronate, clondroitinate, pamidronate, and zoledronic acid all have been tried, and zoledronic acid has been found to be the most potent. Teriparatide has been used when the bisphosphonates were contraindicated, could not be used. However, there has been very little experience in thalassemia patients. Denosumab, there has been very little experience. It has not been used much. Hormone replacement therapy, although it improves the bone density parameters, but the use is limited by the side effects. Then bisphosphonates in combination with hormone replacement regimens have been tried to improve the bone integrity in thalassemic patients. Calcitonin, it is not the first line treatment. It is mainly used for the analgesic effect. So a number of studies which has been done for bisphosphonates to treat the osteoporosis in thalassemia, alendronate, clondroitinate, pamidronate, zoledronic acid, all has been tried. These are both randomized as well as non-randomized controlled trials with the duration of about 12 to 36 months. They all have shown improvement in the bone mineral density at the lumbar spine as well as a femoral bone mineral density with decrease in the bone resorption. If you see the pituitary in thalassemia, there has been this is a sagittal section which shows TR sequences, which shows that there is hypointensity in the pituitary region. There is small pituitary, which is shown by the arrow in the first figure. And there is low signal intensity in the bone as well, which is shown by the star. This shows that both the pituitary as well as the bone is affected in patients with thalassemia, causing pituitary is especially vulnerable to the effects of excessive iron overload. And even in the second patient, there has been MRI signal intensities, low signal intensities have been seen in pituitary in patients with thalassemia. In this axial views, we see the low signal intensities in the liver as well as in the spleen and adrenal glands. However, there is high signal intensity in the pancreas, showing the tissue damage as well as fatty degeneration in the pancreas. So endocrine evaluation should be carried out yearly to detect the subclinical endocrinopathies in patients with thalassemia major, and 90% of the children would go through disease-free survival with bone marrow transplantation. Such patients should also be evaluated for endocrine abnormalities as a consequence of bone marrow transplantation. Once a bone marrow transplant has been done, bone marrow transplant itself may cause some endocrine abnormalities, and these patients should also be followed up with the endocrinologist. So if we see how we do the evaluation, what is the recommendations for evaluation and therapeutic interventions for endocrinopathies and thalassemias is, we have to adjust the desferoxamine levels or use a combination of desferoxamine and desferon. Zinc supplements have to be given. GH treatment has to be started early, and the dose has to be modified based on the IGF-1 levels. Then sex steroids, testosterone, estrogen levels have to be given at an appropriate age. Hypothyroidism to be treated, calcium, vitamin D supplements, vitamin D, and sex hormones for bone mineral density also to be given at age more than 13 years. These are to be carried out at regular intervals